So I wanted to ask you, how did you get to become CMO of NetApp? Like, what's your journey been like?
What a weird and remarkable journey, right? So I've been in tech my whole career. I really just was drawn to it. It felt faster. It felt more innovative. I thought I wanted to be a lawyer, and I enjoyed the education and the reading, but I didn't enjoy the practice of what I thought what the practice was. Now, when I was growing up, this was kind of the net new industry, right? It was like, oh, I want to break in. But you had to have the ability to understand technology. You had to have the ability to kind of think about how it was going to change people's lives. And I was just super drawn to that.
Did you go down the lawyer route? Like, did you go to law school?
Did not go to law school.
Okay.
Like,
so you figured it out
ready.
Before you jumped in.
Yeah, totally ready to go, and was like, oh no.
Yeah.
So, but I interned I paralegaled for and legal secretary for all through college. That's how I made money. And I was like, I'm going to do this. And then I was like, no.
Yeah. And then you went to something totally creative instead.
Yeah. Stanford did this are you deciding to go to law school, come spend 8 weeks with us, and I think it was 6 weeks. 6 weeks, and we'll teach you how to do this. And I went to that 6 week, and I was like, nope. Hard pass.
Well, it's good they did that, though. That really,
it was really cool.
Is before you actually jumped in and committed, you got a taste of it and like, nope, it's not for me. So then, did you go into marketing? Like, what was that path like?
I kind of was in the digital side of the house, kind of in the sales side of the house in the beginning. It was always a little bit of marketing, but it was more on the business development side. And then, then it was just full on marketing. And honestly, I don't have a marketing degree. I don't. I have general communications, history, business kind of appropriate skills. I learned on the job. My first boss hired me off of a newspaper ad and said, I like how you think I can make you a marketer. I was like, oh, okay, cool, that sounds fun.
I love it. It's funny, I meet more CMOs, I think, these days that don't have a marketing background, like a business degree in that. It's something they've just learned. I think a lot of them are creative, but also very analytical. I think there's some key traits there. So within your career, like what really shaped the way you think today as a CMO?
Yeah, a couple of things. Number one is, I think in the beginning, my first couple of jobs were super focused in on understanding how a customer buys and what they need. So a lot of focus in on, the P's of marketing, right? It was relevant, but having the customer at the center of that, I think, was a really defining kind of component of my career. It's, what do I want to focus on? What do I keep kind of central and core to myself, and how do I see that kind of projecting? The second thing that was kind of formative was I'm always attracted to transformation. I'm always attracted to messes or things that need to be changed.
Yeah.
Maybe change is a better way to say that. And so I've always kind of seen the lens of the customer as a way to address change and transformation. The undercurrent to both of those is data. It's just you learn how to tell a story through understanding your customers or the environment through the data, through analyzing it, through understanding what is working, what's not working, how to make it better, how to get scale, how to pull back. And I think that's really early on what really defined, but also what I was attracted to, so I tended to gravitate towards acquiring more of those skills or working for those types of companies.
Yeah, I love it. Did you get a lot of experience with customers early on in your career to help you understand that?
Yeah, and I think I think as I look back now as to being young and in technology, and not being in traditional marketing, being more in that biz dev or field marketing, even kind of partial, you get access to how and what is being sold, to what customers are defining as their opportunities or problems. And I think that's really a huge part of how you learn, because you're not learning rote, you're learning through practice. What's working, what's not working.
Yeah, I mean, my experience, some of the best marketers I've personally worked with have either, they've come from sales or they've been in roles where they've interacted with the customer. And I mean, at the end of the day, their job is to engage a customer in a way that speaks to them, right? And if if you have that customer interaction, it's easier to do that job, I think.
It is. It is. I also think it's part of what I was really committed to is I didn't want to get stuck in any one practice.
Yeah.
I think a lot of marketers get stuck in a practice. Like I'm creative, so I'm this. I'm engineering, so I'm this, right? Or I'm product, so I'm this. Or I'm sales, so I'm this. I wanted to do all of them because I felt that would make me understand the business better. Like I said, I'm a practitioner. I'm a failed MBA. I tried MBA. That was just not my thing. Yeah. I guess school really wasn't my thing. That's
you want to learn on the job.
I want to be.
Yeah.
It's not that I was a bad student. I think I have an energy that's like, just give it to me. I want to learn. I want to learn in a different way.
Yeah. All right. So I want to learn more about your role as CMO at NetApp. But before that, a couple personal questions. This is like my little lightning round I do. So
okay.
Get to know Gabie.
Okay.
All right. 4 questions.
Okay.
First one. How would you like to spend your free time? Like, what would you do on an average day where you don't have to work?
It's really bad. I might be sleeping. I do try to sleep.
There's nothing wrong with sleep. I
don't do a lot of sleeping. I like to get outside.
Yeah.
I really love the outside.
Yeah. You're in Arizona, though, right?
I am.
It's pretty hot there to be outside a lot of the year, right?
Yeah, that's only a couple of times in the year. I mean, it's fine. Yeah. I do read. I don't read. I try to read for pleasure. I really like history.
Yeah.
Whatever I do, it's to take my brain and put it into a different environment.
Yeah.
It's not that I don't enjoy learning, it's that my brain operates on multiple different areas. So in order for it to relax, I have to literally put it into an environment where it's going to relax and not be stimulated by work.
Yeah.
So things like being outside, really resting, reading something that can transport me, those are all things that I love to do.
I cannot read business books before I go to sleep because my brain,
it just turns it on, right?
And I'm applying it, and I got to go someplace else. I do a lot of history, so I'm going to throw in a random one here. So it's actually 5 questions. Your favorite history genre, like era, like what's yours? Everyone's got one that they could just read forever about.
I like 3.
Okay.
I would say equally, but I'll end on probably my favorite. My first one is kind of the 16 to 1700s. There was so much change in Europe and in America, right, in terms of democracy establishing and people kind of throwing off the reins of kings and that kind of system. So I love that because it's countries coming into their own and really defining the next couple hundred years.
Yeah.
So I love that era. I do like that same era for like the 1900s, era, 1910, 20, 30, 40, because I think, again, that is a hugely transformational time in history around the world, right?
Yeah.
It is also highly just horrific with wars and just environmental change. So I like that. But my favorite time in history is really the Industrial Revolution.
Oh, yeah, huh?
Again, because of that, but because I look back on the other 2 and there's dramatic change, but I find the stories between like 1860, like our American Civil War, and like 1900 to be just like the Gilded Age and just transformational, and I dig it. I go there all the time.
Yeah, for me it's Civil War. I read
there you go.
Killer Angels in high school and just been hooked ever since.
Right?
Yeah.
Such a good book.
I know. So
Such a good book. But so that's it.
Yeah.
But again, I can't get enough. And by the way, I can read actual history, and then I can read those like historic novels, which are like I can do both of those.
Yeah,
no problem.
So we made it through 1.5. Okay. Let's do. All right. So number 2, favorite food to order in.
Oh, I don't really order in.
No.
No,
You
I
can
like
say
to
none.
cook. I like to cook. I don't really. You know why I don't like to order in?
Not even pizza.
It's always cold.
Yeah.
If I'm gonna have pizza, I want it out of that stone oven on my table. I want the cheese burning my mouth.
Yeah, it's true. Okay. All right. None. I like it. Name something you're afraid of.
Oh, heights
Okay.
in a big way.
Yeah.
Like I can do it, but like the palpitations
Yeah.
are like up here.
I'm the same way. I can do it, but I don't like it. I went up to the Salesforce Tower and I was like, we don't need to be that close to the window.
Exactly, right?
Yeah.
Or like flying, I never sit by a window.
Oh, really?
Ever.
Yeah.
And I fly all the time.
Yeah. But not a window seat.
No.
Okay. All right, last one. If you could have any superpower, what would it be? And now I know it's not flying. So
It's totally not. Reading people's minds.
I'd be afraid of that one, though.
No. I want. It's like that intake valve, right?
Yeah.
I want all of the information to be able to make sure that I can move the right way, respond the right way. Yeah, reading people's minds.
All right. Well, that's probably why you like listen to the customer, right?
Yeah.
So we'll get back to that now. So I want to, thinking about your role as a CMO at NetApp, I know a lot of CMOs out there kind of define their role differently. How would you describe your role as a business leader within NetApp? What's your responsibility to the company?
I think it's evolved. When I first took this role at NetApp, I think I was very much my job is to help generate pipe, and it still is, and that's not any different. Create a strong brand. I think as my second year is coming to a close in this role, I find that my ability to participate in additional business conversations where those two kind of elements of brand and demand might extend to cultivate maybe a strategic decision, or to cultivate customer feedback, or to think about our product roadmap, or to think about how to grow and where to grow. I like being part of those conversations. So I would say that my role has evolved because of my two focus areas. So it's always going to be brand and demand.
Yeah.
It is. But it's, I believe, my job to extend that into how those two things affect or drive the market for this company and solves a customer problem so that other people can do their jobs better.
Do you think that's novel in the tech industry, or do you think that's kind of where the CMO role is moving for a lot of companies out there?
Yeah, I don't think it's novel. I definitely don't think I'm a magic CMO or have any experiences that any other CMO have never had. I think what I'm trying to do, though, is I'm trying not to rat hole on or get lost in those two objectives of brand and demand. And I do think that depending on the organization and the permission an organization gives you, CMOs can get lost in those two objectives. I don't want to be lost in that. I want to be a participant in this whole kind of company strategy because it will make me better at the two things that I am responsible for. I think that that's what every tech CEO wants their CMO to be.
Yeah.
I think that's what every CMO in tech or in any company wants their CMO to be. I think it's finding that relationship with executives to kind of partner together. I think that's the key. It's always about that relationship that helps you do those things.
Yeah, I want to get into that in a second, but first, so thinking about the impact the marketing organization has on the company, how do you balance the tactical executions, the pipeline, the demand, with that broader business strategy where you can add an element and value on the business side? How do you balance those two?
Yeah, I think you have to be good at the basics, and this is hard work, right? Every CMO knows it, right? You have to understand what you're doing, how you can measure it. There's no getting around that. How many campaigns am I doing? What campaigns are working? What's my conversion rate? There's nothing around that.
So strong foundation.
Have to.
Yeah.
Have to. You have to understand the data that your website is giving off. You have to understand how your customers are providing feedback. You have to understand all of those analytics. I think then if you understand those analytics, then you have to be able to come up and jump up one or two levels. And I think that that's what CMOs or who they work for don't always allow for the jump, right? Because of that relationship, right?
Yeah.
They're so maniacally focused in on the conversion rates or the tactic performance that they're never actually seeing like the metric of ROI that the brand can have to the valuation of a business, right?
Yeah.
It's 1 billion in revenue to 1 percentage point in brand value. How many times do we discuss that, right? We don't, right? But you don't get there unless you do the basics. So I think you have to do the basics to allow that jump, to be able to talk 2 or 3 levels higher, and then you have to be able to have a relationship with the CFO, the CEO, the president, the board that allows for those metrics to really become a conversation topic. And that's really a hard thing to do. And I'm still working that out, right?
Yeah, and that's what I want to dig into now is, so, coming into an organization, it sounds like you've been here about 2 years, what do you think are the key components to building those internal relationships, those internal partnerships with those key executives?
Yeah, I think it starts with, being flexible and agile, and also trial and error. If you get it wrong, you have to call it that you got it wrong. right? That's the first thing, I think. And I've done that a couple of times here where I've put something forward and they're like, no, that's not really
It's
it.
a level of humility.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But I also think it has to be, you have to actually have confidence in what you're saying. We're going through an exercise right now on something where we're talking about brand value, and that is an exercise in confidence and projection of the volume of risk that the company can take in. And I think you then are presenting yourself as a level of expert that you can answer questions and you can propose what that future could be. So it's almost a humility, but with confidence at the same time, being really willing to say, I tried this, it didn't work. I do know that this will work, let's talk about this. Right? So it's a really two sides of the same coin kind of conversation at all times.
So obviously marketing is very metric driven. We live in the
Has to
data.
be.
So as you're working with other departments or other lines of business, how do you effectively communicate metrics where they might not understand all the data, right? And you got to almost speak their language. What does that communication exchange look like?
I think it's an evolution, right? Coming into this role, I had to establish the math, and I think I'm just coming into an environment where I can and have established the math. Otherwise, the only level of conversation you can have is very creative, which most people expect out of marketers. Let's ideate, let's talk, but that ends up being a service. So in order to switch that paradigm, you have to be able to come with the formulas and the math and the propensity models and be able to talk the data so that your creative service can be a viable conversation. So I'm just now getting there, where I think I've done enough of the math where I can then have that conversation and not just be like, it's this, or okay, I'll do what you want me to do.
I haven't heard anybody put it that way in terms of like you're providing a creative service, right? Because it's almost like you're thinking of these internal partnerships as your customers, right? And how would you talk to your customer?
Well, exactly right. And I think we talked about what marketing's position is, right? I think many companies view marketing as a service to the organization.
Yeah.
I agree with that, but I don't want to be a full-on service because there's no way to build an as-a-service organization in that capability. You just will never be able to deliver what you need to do to break through and to build a market if you're only servicing everybody else's ideas.
Yeah.
So how do you find that balance?
Yeah, like a true partnership.
Right.
Yeah. So what advice do you have for CMOs out there that are, trying to build that relationship with, let's say, the CEO at the executive level? What advice do you have for them in terms of building that partnership? It sounds like be a little humble, build trust. Anything else?
I think it's project the confidence, and it's bring the math.
Bring the math.
Bring the math.
Yeah.
Because the math validates your creativity.
Yeah.
It really does. I mean, think about how you're building a brand. We're building a brand here right now that we call an intelligent data infrastructure. I can't talk realistically about a brand narrative and a brand position and brand stats unless I'm able to provide a valuation of that brand and a state of that environment, and that's math.
So when you bring a new message like that to market, and I want to dive into that a little bit later too, because there's a lot there. But when you bring a new message like that to market, the intelligent data infrastructure, do you have to create a framework in terms of how you're going to measure that and communicate those expectations internally?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. That's all it is, right? It's like we're going to do this, we're going to measure it this way, and then we're going to adjust. And everybody has to be on board with that. Right now, I think we're in year and a half into our full launch of it, and we're completely repositioning and saying, you know what, we got most of it right, but here's the part we didn't get right. Here's how now we create a better plan that will create more enablement, more connection, and this is how we're going to measure it. So it absolutely is. But I also think you can't bite off that in the beginning, right? You can have a full trajectory plan, but you're not going to get there.
Yeah.
I think that's the other thing that you have to have a partnership with key leaders. Marketing is not a race. It is a slog. And it is iterative learning and agile adjustment. You put something out there. It's almost like everything we do is an A/B test. I'm doing this. If part of it doesn't work, I'm going to cut that part off and I'm going to try it again. I think everybody thinks it's like a checkbox. Done, good, bad, redo. It isn't. It is the biggest Six Sigma on the planet, going to iterate and learn across time. And I think that if you can communicate that, then how you build brand narratives, for instance, will feel like it's a living, breathing project for the company that everybody can input into. I'm giving feedback. This worked. Great. This didn't work. Fantastic, we'll move over here. And that becomes a true partnership. And that also helps people kind of adjust and take it in, right?
And that's probably not just at your level too. In order to do that, get everybody providing feedback and alignment. I mean, that's probably top down all the way to the bottom.
All the way to the bottom,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And that's it's not just governance; it's use, right? That's what we're trying to promote here. Is that if you don't use it, I can't adjust it, right? And so that's the joy and fun of marketing.
So I want to dive a little bit more into the intelligent data infrastructure from an external partnership perspective now.
Okay.
So in terms of how does that fit into the partner strategy? Because I know NetApp has a really robust partner ecosystem. How are partners buying into the message? Are they taking it? Are they helping to amplify the brand? What does that look like?
I would categorize our partnerships as even including our customers and business partners. When I think about what we've tried to do here is we've tried to really create a level of understanding of what we're committed to for our company that is a framework and yet a future-driven strategy. So when I think of intelligent data infrastructure, what we're really doing for our customers is saying, what is your data strategy? How can we work with you to make it intelligent? And the way that we're going to do that is we're going to deliver an intelligent data infrastructure framework that includes storage. It's going to include intelligent services for AI and your security workloads. And then we're going to partner with other partners to deliver industry best case practices. We're going to deliver solutions for certain aspects of your application workload. So, it really becomes a framework. Some people would call it a platform, and that's perfectly fine. Mm-hmm. But the whole idea is predicated on we want to be your partner for a data strategy. And if you think about those three words, intelligent data infrastructure, at the core of that is data. We are committed as a company to data, and figuring that out for ourselves was really an important aspect for developing this brand narrative and who we wanted to partner with and how we brought that to light through our ecosystem. We couldn't pick something that wasn't resonant across our ecosystem. We also couldn't pick something that was competitive or at odds because we have relationships across OEMs, across great alliances, and across solution providers. So what is going to lift their boats and propel them forward at the same time that it does that for us? So in telling that story, we really had to find that kind of language that was competitive, compelling, and partner ready.
Now, was that marketing led in terms of putting that message together, or was it a joint project across?
Oh, it's always joint. Yeah. I think if it had been marketing led, it would have died a tragic death immediately.
Yeah.
Right? Nobody likes to get told what to do, least of all engineers and salespeople.
So this is going back to the internal partnership. I mean, you
totally.
really worked across the multiple teams, executive level.
Have to
do that.
Yeah, and I mean the evaluation. Once we built it, we tested it lots of times with analysts, external analysts, influencers, customers, partners, internal. Does this work? Does this work? Does this work? Now, understanding that not everybody is going to be happy at every level. And there are a lot of people who still are like, I get it. It's not perfect, but it can evolve and it can be something that we grow into and that becomes real by how our partners and our customers and our salespeople and our engineers use it. And that's the goal.
Well, I think it's just a good example too of how important that internal collaboration is if you want to do something like that. And I can tell you, I was at our CIO 100 event talking to a bunch of CIOs, and we're trying to understand why have a lot of these AI projects stalled? Because I think in the industry we're just not seeing AI adoption at the enterprise level like some of the vendors out there would like. And a lot of what I was just hearing, and obviously this is anecdotal, but we just don't have our data house in order.
It's absolutely correct, especially for AI projects, right? Yeah. If you want to experiment, I mean, even just think about what we were talking about with metrics on marketing. If you want to experiment in marketing, you have to get your math right.
Yeah.
If you want to experiment with AI, you have to get your data right. And that's kind of, we talk about intelligent data infrastructure, and it's about bringing your data to AI and bringing AI to your data. Data is integral in there.
Yeah.
And intelligent data infrastructure, what we've thought is that you can't go further in creating intelligence unless you have a strong foundational data infrastructure.
Now, how do you see that portraying out through some of the partners, like say the hyperscalers of the world, like the AWSs? Are they bought in on this journey? Do you have to convince them of it?
No.
Yeah.
I think that's been a partnership since day one. And actually, I think what we did with Intelligent Data Infrastructure is build on our cloud strategy, because we were one of the first to actually say cloud has to be part of a data infrastructure from the beginning. We just broadened the term for data infrastructure to include cloud. That's part of it. It can't be separate. It has to be part of it.
Yeah.
And I think that that's what's really exciting about this evolution of intelligent data infrastructure, is that all of our partners have been on this journey with us and buy into it because it is part of where we've been going trajectory-wise. Now, how does AI factor in there? I think cloud is a big mover for AI. And I think companies who are thinking about their data in the cloud, their data on-premise, they have to have a good cohesive strategy there. And that's what makes us, again, I think, a strong partner, because we have those relationships, we have a common strategy, and we have a common narrative. If you want to go experiment, then you can do it safely and securely with us because of these hyperscaler relationships. So again, that's part of the thinking and that's part of the process, but it is wholly about partnership and future casting, not just about what I see here today.
In terms of building a strong partnership, let's just pick AWS as an example. Is it really the same components that you're utilizing to build those internal strong partnerships you are with partners like an AWS, in terms of being humble, building trust, effectively communicating like they're a customer?
Always. Yeah. I mean, they are our biggest customer, they are our biggest partner, they are our biggest collaborator, right? I think that humility and confidence is something that we have to give every single partner. That's what they want from us. It becomes like an honest relationship. If you don't have that, then you don't have an honest relationship. So that's when partnerships break down.
Yeah, and I almost suspect setting realistic expectations too.
Absolutely,
yeah.
Absolutely. I think everything is about give and take, right? I mean, you're going to have a trajectory move that says, I want to achieve, but you're never going to achieve it if you haven't kind of laid some of that good groundwork or have a communication profile back and forth, right? If this was working, then I need to be able to tell you. Back to how we even promoted IDI.
I want to ask, is that what we're calling it, IDI? Is that what it should say?
We should really call it intelligent data infrastructure.
We're going to be on brand, right? On brand.
We're intelligent data infrastructure, not IDI.
So with that, what I'm fascinated about it is I love the storytelling message side of marketing. You think of business intelligence, customer relationship management, like businesses creating these corners of the market that didn't exist from a brand, messaging perspective, and all of a sudden everyone's coming in and say, well, I'm a CRM company too, Do you feel like the industry's kind of gotten away from that a little bit? Because I anecdotally, I don't feel like I see it as much as we used to 10, 20 years ago.
I think we have. I think we run to things as an industry much harder and faster. Like cloud, everything got cloud washed. Yeah. Now everything is getting AI washed. I think the goodness around business intelligence and CRM was that it had customer at the center of it. I think the imperatives of cloud or the topics of AI have colored how we keep the customer at the center. I think that's also part of what that collaboration that we're trying to have with our partners and on our brand is, that we're trying to keep the customer at the center of that. I've been in both of those, CRM and in business intelligence, and I think that the how to tell the story was always predicated on how a customer was using. Because there was no value. You couldn't explain the value of business intelligence unless you really were able to communicate the intelligence that a customer was getting off of it. And I think that that's something that I hope that we here at NetApp are really kind of leaning into. I see that more coming up from how are we bringing AI, instead of just AI washing something, how are we kind of trying to bring that reality back? What's your experience? What use cases? What workloads? How is that being measured? How is it working? I feel like AI can get there, but I think our industry's first inclination is to run hard and fast and then to back in. So I'm hoping that we kind of bring those two back together.
Yeah, okay. So really start with the customer in terms of how you're thinking about your message. It all comes back to the customer, right?
That does.
But that, I almost see that as a missing component for a lot of I don't want to generalize here, but a lot of marketing organizations are just so hard set on the metrics that I think the customers sometimes forgot about that. It's like,
it's true.
this is a real buyer out there that is going to make a decision, and we're just so caught up in the data that I think we sometimes forget that.
Well, and you got to do the math, but you also have to be aware, right? I think that's why I call it AI washing. We've made a very conscious decision to not use the term AI in intelligent data infrastructure.
Yeah.
Because as AI changes, it will be a different scenario, just like cloud changed.
Yep.
When you talked about cloud, first you were talking about cloud, then you were talking about hybrid cloud, then you were talking about hybrid multi-cloud. Cloud changed. We want to be ready and build for what the customer needs today and tomorrow, not just what they need today. So I think it's really important to be thinking about that and to use your metrics wisely, but to also listen to the market, which is another form of metric evaluation, right?
Yeah.
Just because your competitor is doing it because they're trying to, get more clicks doesn't mean that you should.
I think that's really good advice for every company that's just run to AI, threw it up on their website, put it on all their collateral.
All the people who are .ai, I'm like,
Yep.
Okay, I get it.
Yeah.
I get it. I do. As a guerrilla marketer, that is for some companies that works. If you're in NVIDIA, you can own that market. If you're everybody else, I don't know if you want to.
Yeah.
You want to make it real for what your customers are going to get from you. And you certainly don't want to sell vaporware.
Yeah.
Because that can come back and bite you as well.
Well, it's funny you say that because I sat down with a CMO last week, and that's exactly what he said is, there's so much hype where this is going, but you got to get real with the customer and what can be delivered today.
Yeah.
And they're going to appreciate that from you.
It is. And I think what they're going to do is that's going to create a foundation of trust. It's like, let's go build it with you. And that's why I really like use cases and workloads, because it can say, you know what? We can provide this structure for you to think about your data and to think about where you're going. Let's go figure out what use cases are going to be valuable for you. Not where you want to go, what you can do today, and then what we can build on. Well,
I think that's key because, I think the premise right now is everything's going to be sent to the cloud in terms of workloads. And I don't think that's the reality. I think a lot of companies are going to want to keep some of that data private, first party, in-house, and they want the flexibility.
It's shocking to me how the conversation is exactly the same in every phase of data.
Yeah.
It really is. What's going to move fast? What isn't? What do you want to keep private? What do you not want to keep private? That's the whole conversation around a data strategy from the dawn of time. And that's what I love about working here at NetApp is that really that is our core. What is that data strategy that you want to have a conversation about? Yeah. What are the influences?
So what are you most excited for next? Because this sounds pretty exciting now. So what's next? Whether for you personally or for marketing or NetApp? Or this is the wave that's just going to take you into the future?
I mean, it's definitely a wave. I don't think it's my wave forever, but I do. Listen, I think technology is exciting. It's why I got into this industry in the first place. I like the idea of creating growth and scale out of this. I mean, if NetApp is a $20 billion company while I'm here, then that makes me extremely happy.
Yeah.
That is a massive growth curve that would make me excited. Personally, I think it's just about continuing to do good work and telling a story that's really human and one that I can be proud of. I mean, that's what the job is.
Yeah, well, I personally learned a lot because I think, a lot of marketers go into a role where they want to do the strategy, they want to be that business leader, but unless you have your house in order first, it's going to be hard to do those things. It's going to be hard to build the relationships, to leverage those relationships, to drive message, and then work with the partners to scale that. Right?
Exactly right.
So my last question for you is just, what advice do you want to leave people out there?
Do the math.
Do the math, huh?
Do the math.
I love it.
No, but also, again,
that's a good one, though.
It is a good one. It's a good one. You know what? Listen, marketing is a journey. Be ready to ebb and flow, but do it in a way that's authentic and be agile and responsive, and you'll have fun doing it. When you stop having fun doing it, go do something else, but be authentic.
Well, it's a good theme for this show because I built this show on authenticity.
There you go.
So good advice. So Gabie, thank you so much for coming on. I appreciate it.
I appreciate being here.
Thank you.